When she's in pain, something supernatural happens to everyone around her. Carrie White is 16 years old and lives in a small town in Maine with her mother, and everything about her reads as a person who has learned to take up as little space as possible. She's pale and quiet and moves through school hallways the way you move through a room where you're not welcome, quickly, eyes down, braced. Her mother, Margaret White, kept her out of school and homeschooled her for years until the state intervened and forced her back into the system, which means Carrie arrived into adolescent social life late, unequipped, and marked. She has no friends. She eats alone. She flinches when anyone gets close, because in her experience, people who get close are usually about to do something. The film establishes her isolation with brutal economy at softball practice. The other girls laughing and easy with each other, Carrie missing the ball every single time, the collective contempt of the group directed at her the way groups direct contempt at their designated weakest member. The gym teacher, Ms. Desjardins, blows the whistle and sends everyone to the showers, and in the showers, everything begins. Standing under the water, Carrie discovers blood. She has no idea what's happening to her. Margaret White has never explained menstruation to her daughter, not out of oversight, but as a matter of doctrine, because in Margaret's theology, the workings of a woman's body are sin made flesh, and you don't prepare a child for sin. So when Carrie sees blood, the only interpretation available to her is the obvious one. She's dying. She panics completely, sliding to the tile floor, screaming, shaking, begging for help from the girls around her. The girls do not help. One of them sees what's happening and runs, not for a teacher, but for the others. They crowd the shower entrance and they laugh. They chant at her. They mock a 16-year-old girl curled on a bathroom floor who genuinely believes she is bleeding to death. And the scene is shot with the flat, unadorned cruelty of something that happens in real schools every day, minus the blood. Ms. Desjardins hears the commotion and comes running. She breaks up the crowd, gets down on the floor with Carrie, and tries to reach her through the hysteria. Carrie is shaking too hard to hear anything. Desjardins slaps her once, the old-fashioned circuit breaker for panic, and at the exact moment her palm connects, the light bulb above them sparks and blows out. Nobody registers it. There's too much else happening. But the film has just shown you its whole hand in one image. Carrie White's pain has a voltage, and it goes somewhere. Desjardins takes her to the principal's office and explains the situation. Mr. Morton is genuinely staggered that a girl Carrie's age didn't know what a period was, and agrees the other girls will be disciplined and Carrie should be sent home to recover. Then he calls her in and gets her name wrong. He calls her Cassie. She doesn't correct him. She absorbs it, the way she absorbs everything. He calls her Cassie again. She stays silent. The third time, something shifts behind her eyes, and she says firmly that her name is Carrie.
It's Carrie!
The desk in the corner of the office moves on its own. Books throw themselves off the shelves. Carrie walks out and leaves the two adults standing in the wreckage of their own explanations. The school has already metabolized the shower incident into entertainment by the time she reaches her locker. Someone has written, "Plug it up," across the door. When she opens it, a cascade of tampons pours out onto her shoes, and the hallway laughs the way hallways laugh, as one organism. She says nothing. She collects her books and walks home. On the walk, a boy on a bicycle circles back to mock her, and something inside Carrie reaches out before she decides anything. The boy is thrown from his bike, hard, and lies in the road while she keeps walking without looking back. And she remembers something the film delivers as a buried recollection, being very small, wandering into a neighbor's yard, and Margaret punishing her for it. As her mother beat her and Carrie cried, the sky itself seemed to answer, fire falling from above, the world responding to a child's pain. This has always been in her. She just never had a name for it. Home is where the real horror of the film lives, and it has nothing to do with telekinesis. Margaret White is waiting. She already knows what happened. She tells Carrie she's a woman now. And when Carrie asks the only question that matters,
Why didn't you tell me, Mama?
Margaret answers with the prayer closet. What happened to Carrie's body is the curse of blood, God's punishment on Eve, a mark of shame to be prayed over rather than a fact of biology to be explained. She demands Carrie repeat the words. Carrie refuses. Margaret drags her to the closet by force and locks her in. The closet scene contains the film's most quietly devastating detail. Carrie has hidden a beauty magazine in there. She reads it by the strip of light under the door. This small, secret act of wanting a normal life conducted inside her mother's punishment chamber. When she hears footsteps, she hides it and starts praying loudly. Margaret unlocks the door and sends her to bed. Neither of them says another word. This is the routine. This has always been the routine. At school, Ms. Desjardins delivers the consequences. She lines the girls up in the gym and dismantles them, asks whether any of them stopped for 1 second to consider that Carrie White has feelings, tells them she saw exactly how ugly every one of them was on that bathroom floor. The sentence, 3 days suspension and their prom tickets revoked. No appeals. For most of the girls, it lands as deserved. For Chris Hargensen, it lands as an injustice to be avenged. Chris is the ringleader, the one who enjoyed it most, and her response to consequences is her lawyer father, who storms the school threatening lawsuits and talking over Ms. Desjardins like she's furniture. The administration lets him finish. Then they explain precisely what his daughter did in that locker room and inform him that if he files charges, the school will cross-file on behalf of Carrie and the 19 other students who witnessed it. Mr. Hargensen says he'll see them in court. The administration says very well, court it is. He leaves without another word, and Chris's prom ticket stays revoked. Chris tries to rally Sue Snell, her supposed friend and fellow participant, into the war effort. Sue looks at her with calm, settled disinterest and makes it clear she's done. Chris stares at her like she's become a stranger, which, in the way that matters, she has. Because Sue Snell is the film's conscience and she's been doing arithmetic that Chris is incapable of. Sue was in that bathroom. She laughed too, and unlike the others, she can't file it away. Her solution is unusual and complicated, and the film lets it stay complicated. She asks her boyfriend, Tommy Ross, genuinely kind, genuinely popular, the rare person who was both, to take Carrie White to prom. Tommy's first response is the correct one. It's a bad idea. It will look like a trick. Sue's answer is the film's thesis in one line. It won't seem like a trick if it isn't one. Ask her. Be nice to her. Hold her hand. Mean it. Meanwhile, Carrie has been doing her own research. She walks into the school library and asks the librarian, with careful determination, to show her how to search the internet. She types slowly. She searches for what she's been experiencing. Objects moving by unseen force, miracles, others like her, and finds pages and pages. She learns the word telekinesis. She learns, more importantly, that she is not alone and not damned. This is a thing that exists in the world, documented, named. For a girl raised to believe every unusual thing about herself is sin, a search results page is a revelation. She practices at home. She sits in front of a hairbrush and concentrates until it slides across the table on its own. When Margaret's voice comes through the door mid-session, asking if she's saying her prayers, the interruption ignites something. Carrie shouts back, and the hairbrush flies across the room, and everything on every surface goes with it, the whole bedroom erupting. She stands in the wreckage, breathing, learning the shape of her own trigger. Tommy finds her in the library stacks and asks her to prom. Carrie's response is armor. She doesn't like being tricked. He tells her it isn't one, that Sue thinks she's interesting, that she has more going on than people know, and that part of Sue would love to see Chris Hargensen's face when she finds out Carrie is going to prom and she isn't. Carrie almost smiles at that. Then the bell rings and she retreats. Tommy follows her into the hallway and plants himself. He's not leaving until she says yes, and if anyone laughs at her, he'll handle it personally. She looks at him for a long moment, running every calculation a lifetime of cruelty has taught her to run, and says, "Okay." Margaret's answer to the prom is no, then scripture, then water, thrown in her daughter's face. And this is where the film's power balance visibly tips. When Carrie tries to leave the room and Margaret moves to stop her, the door slams shut on its own. The table slides across the floor and blocks Margaret's exit. Carrie asks her still, to please just sit down and talk. She explains in a voice that shakes only a little that she wants to start living her own life. That she isn't a witch, but she can move things and other people can too, and she's read about them. That she is going to prom and nothing is going to stop her. And then she says, "I love you, Mama," and releases her. It's the film's best scene precisely because Carrie wins it with restraint. She has enough power in her body to end the argument permanently, and what she uses it for is a locked door and a chance to be heard. The night before prom, Chris and her boyfriend Billy drive out to a pig farm in the dark with a sledgehammer and a bucket. One of the boys they've brought can't make himself swing. Billy takes the hammer and does it without hesitation, which tells you what you need to know about Billy. They fill the bucket and carry it away into the night. Prom night. Carrie comes downstairs in a pink dress she made herself, and Margaret orders her to take it off and burn it, promises they will laugh at her like they always do, invokes Jezebel and the fate of women who dress with lustful purpose.
Take off that dress.
No, Mama.
They'll laugh at you.
Go away.
Carrie presses her hands flat on the table, physically holding down everything rising in her, and then moves her mother out of the room with her mind and shuts the door between them. She finishes getting ready alone. Waiting for Tommy, her anxiety fills the house and the house responds. The table rises, chairs lift off the floor, everything she's terrified of and desperate for making the room hover. The doorbell rings. Tommy hears crashing inside and asks if her ceiling is collapsing. She says yes. He asks if he can see it. She says no. He tells her she looks beautiful. There's a limousine at the curb and she cannot stop smiling, and Margaret watches from the window in total silence as the car pulls away. The prom itself is the cruelest thing the film does because it lets it be wonderful. People notice Carrie, some surprised, some genuinely admiring the dress she made. Tommy's friends are kind to her. Tommy teaches her to slow dance and she laughs while she learns. She thanks him, says she knows he doesn't like her that way, but she's glad she got to be his date tonight. And he says he's glad too and means it. Ms. Desjardins sits with her at the punch table and tells her something no one has ever told Carrie White, that none of this matters after graduation, that the miserable ones turn out fine. She swears to God. For about 40 minutes of screen time, Carrie White gets to have the life she read about in the magazine hidden in the prayer closet. The ballots for prom king and queen have been switched by one of Chris's allies. Tommy and Carrie are on the ballot by design. Above the gymnasium, in the rafters, Chris and Billy wait with the bucket of pig's blood hanging directly over the podium, the rope in Chris's hands. The names are announced. The crowd cheers. Actually, cheers. Tommy takes Carrie's trembling hand and tells her that whatever happens tonight, she's queen. She walks to the stage past people applauding her, wearing a smile the film has never shown on her face before, and the crown is placed on her head, and she closes her eyes. Chris almost can't pull the rope. Her heart is hammering. Billy has to hiss at her that this was her idea, that if she loses her nerve now, none of it means anything. The king and queen come down to lead a dance. At the center of the floor, surrounded by people who have never once been kind to her, Tommy kisses her. A single drop of blood lands on her hand. She looks up. Chris pulls the rope. 2 gallons of pig's blood pour down onto Carrie White in front of the entire school. It drenches her completely and splashes across Tommy's face. The gym goes silent for one terrible second, and then the students who were in on it start laughing, and then others join, calling her pig, calling her every name she's absorbed her whole life. And Carrie stands motionless and soaked while the room becomes the shower scene again at full scale. Tommy, furious, tears the crown off his head, and the falling bucket strikes him and he collapses. Carrie doesn't go to him. She doesn't scream. She looks out across the room with eyes that aren't frightened anymore. The gymnasium doors slam shut on their own. Every exit seals. A student jamming his hand into a closing gap loses his fingers to it. Lighting rigs tear loose from the ceiling. Fire hoses rip from the walls and whip water across the crowd. The electrical systems blow, sparks catch the decorations, and Carrie White stands in the center of it. completely still, arms slightly raised, eyes moving slowly across the room as she brings everything down. The bleachers collapse, the ceiling burns, an electrical device falls into the flooded floor, and the current takes everyone standing in the water, everyone except Carrie, who walks through it untouched and out through doors that open for her and close behind her as the building comes down. The film is precise about her state in the rampage. She isn't sorting the guilty from the innocent. She watches some of them die and doesn't notice others. She's not thinking about who deserves what. She's just burning. Ms. Desjardins, who has spent the whole film as the one adult who consistently showed up, smashes a window with a chair and hauls students out one by one, saving as many as she can reach. Carrie walks home through a town that comes apart around her, cars lifting and crashing, storefronts exploding, streetlights dying block by block. Sue, hearing sirens, drives toward the school and ends up at a gas station watching police cars shake on their frames, and then sees her walking through fire, unhurt and unreachable. Sue calls her name. Nothing. Carrie keeps walking. Chris and Billy, hearing the school is gone, drive toward the fires and find a figure on the road ahead, a girl in a dress. Billy understands a moment before Chris does and floors the accelerator. Carrie doesn't flinch. The car hits her, flips end over end, and crashes burning into a ditch with both of them inside. Carrie stands over the wreckage for a moment, looking at what's left of the two people who engineered her humiliation. Then she walks on. At home, everything on the floor parts to clear her path. The bath taps turn themselves on. She climbs into the tub and sits under the running water as it washes the blood out of her hair. And this is where the film breaks your heart a second time. When Margaret comes in, Carrie cries out for her. She says she can't remember what happened. She begs her mother to help her, to tell her what she did. She is, in this moment, exactly what she has always been underneath everything, a child who wants her mother. Margaret kneels beside the tub and tells her to pray. Repeat every word. Carrie closes her eyes and repeats after her mother, voice broken and exhausted, finding actual comfort in the familiar words for the first time in her life. And Margaret pushes her daughter's head under the water. Carrie struggles, claws for the surface, and Margaret holds her down with her whole weight, because in Margaret's theology, this was always where it had to end. The thing she made has revealed itself, and the only remaining act of motherhood is drowning it. The house shakes around them. Carrie goes still. And then, her hand rises out of the water and finds her mother, and the film shows what Carrie sees. Her mother's heart beating inside her chest. The heart squeezes once, slowly, and stops. Margaret falls back from the tub and does not get up. Margaret White dies on her own bathroom floor next to the daughter she tried to kill. Sue has been searching the burning town all night. She finds the White House, and inside it, Carrie face down in the tub with the water still running and Margaret's body on the floor. She pulls Carrie out. She does CPR, pressing on her chest again and again, refusing the outcome in front of her, and Carrie gasps and opens her eyes. Sue holds her face and tells her it isn't her fault and that she has to leave this place. This is where the 2002 version departs completely from every other Carrie, and it's the reason to recap this one specifically. Weeks later, two women stand in a cemetery in front of a headstone carved with two names, Margaret White and Carrietta White. One of them is Sue, laying flowers. The other is Carrie, alive, officially dead, mourning at her own grave. She says quietly that she doesn't know where to go. Sue says it doesn't matter. She'll drive her as far as she can, halfway at least. That much she can do. They drive. The town disappears behind them. Somewhere on the long road, Carrie falls asleep, and her sleeping face is the face of someone who has carried something unimaginably heavy for a very long time and has finally, just for this moment, been allowed to put it down. Then she dreams, and Margaret's face surfaces behind her closed eyes, as present as she ever was, as present as she will always be. Sue glances in the rear view and asks gently if she's having a bad dream. Carrie opens her eyes. She looks out at the road. They keep driving. Carrie ends not with a hand bursting from a grave, but with something quieter, and in some ways harder. A survivor in a passenger seat, headed somewhere no one knows her face, carrying her mother with her, because that's how it works. You can stop a heart with your mind, and the person still doesn't leave. The horror of Carrie was never really the telekinesis. It was that every adult and institution that should have protected this girl failed her in sequence, her mother most of all, until the only power she had left was the kind that burns down gymnasiums. The one person who tries to make it right can't undo any of it. All she can do is drive,